Welcome, Legitimates, to the first episode of Seemingly Ugly Fabrics. This was the first random set I was sent, and I decided to opt for the small scrap of off-white roses. So we are going to now make a pouch of sort. We're using the Pouch's lining template, but we're not going to put a base. We're going to box the corners instead. So I'm also taking the exterior so that I can have some of this fabric on the outside as well. And that pretty much uses up all of the scraps. Now we are going to find a vinyl. This is an off-white Holden Car fabric vinyl I got from an upholsterer. So I wanted it to be not too white and not too brown. And this was perfect for it. It was just in my stash. Now, you actually only need to cut one of these. This was me not paying attention to myself. I was too busy chatting to you. And then we're going to cut one the opposite way to the way we did the lining. So it'll be the other side. What I am about to realize is I'm actually going to flip the fabric and put the interfacing on the front so that it's whiter from the back. Now, this is a tearaway stabilizer that I always use. And we are going to hoop it by itself, and then we are going to what's called float the vinyl on top. So I've put my middle lines so that I can see where the center is, and then I'm just going to find the middle of the pouchel, and I want to put the design higher than the center because we're going to box that bottom. If we weren't boxing the bottom, you would put it in the middle, but you're going to see here I'm about to put it on off center, or not off center. Well, yeah, no, it is off center, I guess. So we're going to put it up so that the top is just inside the hoop, and then the excess will lay over the bottom like that. And I've used double-sided tape to put it in place. Then the design will stitch out. I will just show you a little bit. We're not going to watch the whole thing.
All right, I have a new camera stand, so you get to be like directly in front of me. You're actually attached to my other machine, but that's fine. So we now have the fabric reversed, so it's more white. It's like creamier and less cream, weirdly enough. And so I had to go and cut another one of these because I wasn't thinking when I cut before. But this definitely looks nicer reversed. So don't forget, you can reverse your fabrics. Not all of them work out like that. But quilting cotton does. So I'm going to put this line together. And we're going to make this very, very similar to how we normally make a pouchel. Except we're going to box the corners instead of adding a base. So we want to start here so that all the pieces are together. I'm going to go up to a 4 stitch length, and I might actually cut this off because I want to open this seam out. By opening it out, it will indeed be flatter. Get my little rolly thingy. If you don't have a rolly thingy, you can also open the seam out and then run it on the edge of the table like this. I am pushing it all the way around so that you get a fairly good crease. Now, it probably won't stay perfectly. You can sticky tape it down if it's bothering you. I'm okay though. So we're going to stitch, back stitch. I'm just going to do 1 back stitch because then we won't see it later. Back stitch, needle up, jump to the other side. And back stitch. Trim those tails. So now you can tell that this is not in the center. That is deliberate, and I'm about to show you why. So I did it so that there's enough seam allowance at the top to fold it over, and I left a decent chunk at the bottom. Because we're going to box the corners, we need a ruler. So this ruler is 1 1/4 inches wide, which funnily enough is the perfect width for zipper tape. That's why I designed it that way. So we're going to go 1 1/4 inches up from the bottom and then across. So these will be our box corners. And I haven't done it yet just because I haven't. I wanted to do it on camera. So we're going to do that to all the pieces. So 1 1/4 inches up, 1 1/4 inches out. And you might be wondering, why am I doing 1 1/4 inches? Because I want a 1 inch box, and I'm going to have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I've added those together, and that is what you get. I can put it on the back. So this has got woven medium interfacing on it. If you don't want to have to rule this many, you could just cut off this square of the vinyl and then trace it to the rest of them, if that's more your style. You get options. 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches. Okay, I might just put that there. I'm gonna grab my purple scissors. These are Class A something. Can't really remember. I do like these scissors. I didn't think I would because of the weird plastic handle, but they are surprisingly comfortable to cut with. Now I'm cutting this now just so I don't have to deal with it later. And we're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance everywhere. These are also lovely and sharp. I haven't needed my husband to sharpen them yet. I am also not cutting paper with these though, so that I don't have that problem. This has got the Vilene 1050F on the outside. Woven fuse would also be lovely for that. And I'm using antelope colored thread, which is it does not need to be as thick as I'm using. I'm going to say that now. But I'm using M40, which is Tex 70. These pouches can just be done with normal sewing thread. If you're new to the sewing world, it's just a pouch. So I'm going to grab some tape. I'm going with cream because it is pretty close to the creaminess of this. Pretty close. And then we can grab some. You don't have to use tape. I'm just using it because I have it. And it does make the zipper lovely. And it's rippable. So I just pull on it and it comes off, which is lovely. Now I'm not going to do zipper tabs today, but you could definitely add zipper tabs if you wanted to. And you could do them in a couple of different ways. One day I'm going to take a pattern and show you all the ways you can do the same thing for different finishes. But until then, we're just going to do it this way. Oh, I'll also have you guys know, I fixed my scissors problem just while we're here. I got some, what's it called? The locking, something lock. Now, the words escaped me. I got it from Super Cheap Auto, actually. It's like to lock your, like the nuts and bolts, and I just put a little bit on, and Bob's your uncle. I fixed it. Now, if you wanted to, you could put another piece of double-sided tape and stick this one down, but I'm okay with just the one. So I'm going to go back to a 2.5 stitch length. I mean, it did cost me $13 for the bottle for the locking stuff, but those scissors are like $40 or $50 to replace, so I do not regret getting it. I've stitched across the top and we back stitch. Now I'm going to go up to a 4 stitch length and just pull back at the top one and then top stitch it down. Across we go. I want to make sure that that seam allowance is underneath the needle because it's going to help it hold it down flatter. So see how now it won't sit up? It's nice and flat under there. So that's one side. If you don't have the tape, you can use clips to do this. Clip there. Clip there. There will be a link to this design in the description. I'm going to grab the exterior and we're going to add it on into the clips. Now I don't like to do all three at the same time, but some people do. So you can do it that way if you want. I just don't. Okay, back to a 2.5 stitch length. We're going to stitch and we're going to back stitch. Good. Nearly just lifted up that seam allowance. You can also cut that down if you're finding it too thick for your machine. Once you've top stitched it, you can cut away the excess if you like. There's my little zipper pull. I went with gold because, I don't know, I felt like the whole creaminess wanted the gold with it. Up to a 4 stitch length. Sometimes I use 3 3/4 as my top stitching length. It's entirely up to you which one you want to use. Now this bit here where the seam is going to be a little bit thick, so just keep that in mind and really cut away all that excess if you're on a domestic and you're worried. I mean, there's no foam or anything, so it's not crazy thick, but you never know. So now I'm going to take my zipper pull and I'm going to put it on this side. I always like mine closing to the left, so that's now the back and that's the front. I mean, or you can have it the other way, but I definitely think the embroidery is the front. So we're just going to thread on one side and the other side. Oop, unless I miss like that. Okay. Oh, it's just not working out at all, is it? Squeeze it up, push it down. I'm going to put it all the way in the middle. You can tell the middle because there's a middle seam on the back. All right, so we're going to take our 2 exteriors and I'm going to stitch them together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance because that's what I've calculated. If you want a bigger seam allowance, you can do that. I'm just not. All right, so these edges should line up. Make sure everything's lined up and off we go. Back stitch. Now some people like to just bring this straight under, which you can do if you want to. I'm going to come to here, stitch and back stitch. We will eventually cut that tail. Now I'm not clipping this side, but I will clip the other side to show you. I'm also pushing the zipper down towards the lining today, just for something different. It gives a bit of a different look to what I did the other day, that's all. Stitch, back stitch. And then when we get to here, I'm actually going to cut this off. So we want to leave a gap. I'm going to use something erasable because this is such a light fabric, but I want to leave a gap between here and let's say there. So the bigger the gap, the easier the bag is to turn, but it's more fiddling there, I suppose. So I'm just going to stitch from the corner to my little line I drew and then back stitch. The line is for your benefit, really, but you should do it if you're new so that you don't automatically just stitch all the way across, because then you can't turn your bag. Now, if I was to clip this instead, we are going to clip it so that the clips are facing right side up. I'm going to push the seam down so that the zipper is now in the lining. You can push them either way, but today we're doing it this way because I can. All right, we add clips and then we're going to come down to this end, line up the edges. This is small enough that if you were wanting to brave it without clips, that's okay. There's no foam or anything to kind of fight you, which is nice. Stitch along, back stitch, chop it off. And then if we turn this over, I can see the line. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly at the line, but you need to have enough so that you can box the corners without it being an issue, like that. So now I've got all of those done. I am going to start with the lining because the lining is always more pliable. I'll put my fingers in and I'm going to pull it out so that those 2 seams are lined up in the center. And then we're going to add some clips. On the lining, you can use pins if you wish. Now, I want this seam to be folded the same way, so we're going to do that. Clip it together. I'm just going to put one. In my opinion, that's small enough just for one. And then we're going to do 1/4 inch seam and just box that corner. If you want to, you can bring this one over and chain stitch because chain stitching is awesome. I know that's just probably my opinion, but I still think it's awesome. Then I'm going to cut that one, cut those tails. And then if you wanted to get real fancy, you can take this corner, bend it over, and chain stitch this one straight after. Chain stitching is a great way to up your productivity. So, last corner. Now I know it's attached, but I can see that this one needs to go that way. So I drag the other one the other way. Oop. That just moved then. That one that way, that one that way. Squish it down, bring it under, stitch, back stitch. Ta-da! Take off all those jump stitches. And so now we're just going to turn it through here. Now I didn't open my zip. Lots of you freak out about this. Put your finger in front of it. If you don't have nails, this is a stylus. You could also grab a pen, right? I'm trying to do this via the mirror, so it probably looks a little more awkward than it needs to be. Put it in and just open the zip with a stylus or your nail or a pen. And then if you grab right in front of the zip and pull, it will just open. If you're finding your zipper stubborn, put your hand in and use your hand to open it. Now I don't need to cut, I don't really need to cut down any of your seams because it is 1/4 inch, but if you wanted to, you could take out a little bit of the bulk where the zipper is. And by little bit, I mean really little bit. It's like the tiniest amount because the seam allowance is so small. But that should just help the zipper sit nicer. So I'm going to gather it up like a sock, grab those corners, push it through. I use my thumbs to just kind of push it all through. And then as always, I get my turning stick. Doesn't matter how big or small it is, the turning stick is awesome. And push the corners out. Yes, that is the Painting the Roses Red song from Alice in Wonderland. It is stuck in my head because I'm making this bag. Alright, so if we pull on this and then just tuck our fingers in, it should just fold over for the lining. Now, if you're new to sewing, please put clips to help hold it in place. But I'm alright. I actually don't know all the words to the song. I only know like one verse. It'll stop once I finish the bag, I hope. It's been playing in my head since yesterday. Okay, so then we just tuck that in. And that just went from an ugly scrap to a super cute bag. And see how now that we've boxed the corner, it's not far from the bottom. So even though it looked awkward before, it's actually fine. And the zipper looks crooked because it was bent like that. There's actually nothing wrong with that zipper. Sometimes you get a ripple. More often it's than not, it's just because you haven't like smoothed it out. See? The zipper's fine. We're all good. If you do find that you get a lot of ripply zippers, get the double-sided tape. It'll help. So I've now got a boxed bottom and a cute pouch. And I love that design. And then we've got the half and half in the back, and we've used pretty much all of that fabric. There really wasn't very much left. So there you go, guys. Ugly to fabulous in a very, very short amount of time. And I did make sure that I used some of the ugly fabric on the outside as well. So thank you all for joining me on this first little episode of Seemingly Ugly, and I'm sure I'll see you in the next one. Bye!